first pick it. No Zyrakan available for G2. Will they try and respond with the Jinx, or will they look to lock in themselves something like the Vi, which we've seen being a very powerful pick here at the tournament?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, Thresh, another option here that they're going to have to watch out for.
Oh, the Draven! Oh, he's got through!
Oh,
the Draven! Summons
Draven! On average, a 2.3k gold lead at 14 minutes on this champ.
And this was actually, we were just talking about pick ban earlier. This was by far the most banned champion against G2 throughout spring and winter split. Over 80% of the games, it was banned against him. No ban thrown towards him for this first game, and he's going to be able to grab it, and they're going to go for the Nidalee. So this is already gas pedal, all early game. Going to try to be able to snowball this game very, very quickly, and I think that's where G2 excels, and I think that's where they really want to look when they're going up against a massive opponent like Gen.G.
Well, but now there's a window for Gen.G to just get themselves the Ahri as well. Aphelios, Vi, Ahri is like the stock standard meta, and it will be going into the hands of Chovy as well.
But when has G2 ever been someone to play by the meta, right? This is a team that has defied expectations throughout all of their history, has been defined by picks like Pike Top and crazy things like that. So, you know, I think for G2, it makes sense to buck the trends, go towards what you are really strong on, and to what your opponents are going to have less practice against.
And especially since Gen.G are so good in the mid to late game, I think a lot of analysts came into this thinking G2 need to do stuff in the early game, need to have, as you say, their foot on the gas, and alongside something like Lissandra, who does have that level 6 lockdown potential, the Nidalee can do a lot of work.
My biggest question, though, is who's going to be their AD pairing top, right? Because Olaf has already been banned out. If I'm Gen.G, I'm banning multiple AD top laners here to try to force either, you know, a poor AD pick top or a triple AP top side, which is horrible for G2. So you can ban out things like Jace, you can ban out things like potentially Aurelia. You know, I want to see where BB is actually willing to go. Would he go to the Darius even?
That's what I was thinking. The Darius obviously a possibility, but he
Renekton
has also brought out Pantheon and Akshan. They haven't always worked, but BB does have a slew of AD champs he can look towards.
If I'm G2, I'm looking at a Gragas ban right now. I think that Renekton seems like the best option for you in terms of blind top side. But remember that you ideally want to play towards your bot side of the map. Draven is where you want to try and get ahead. The Nidalee-Renekton combo is tried and true in terms of finding success top. But to me, this heavily suggests that G2 want to try and find advantages to their bot lane 2v2.
We have to remember, you know, G2's on red side. They don't actually need to blind top, right? They should probably fifth pick it here unless they are really going to try to actually play for, you know, that bot lane counter pick, and that is an option here. You know, Mickey could wait to actually see what support is going to be locked in. We know Thresh has been banned away by Gen.G, so that's not going to be available here for Mickey, but it also won't be available for Delight to try to keep Peyz safe on this Aphelios.
I also think if you're Gen.G in this situation, you're probably looking towards the Gragas top, who is hard to play into. He's got good escapability. Doran's played him incredibly well through the playoffs, did really well in finals as well, and now with the Poppy, the Jace, and the Nar removed, I think we are moving towards a Gragas for Gen.G.
And I am a little bit concerned here, you know, for G2, because I think
you're not the only one, is
that Gragas up. To me, that was by far Doran's best champion, right? You know, he was dominating Zeus in the finals on that, but throughout playoffs, I believe he's undefeated on it. And they're just going to slap down the Darius. I mean, he's kind of saying, you know, what is Doran going to actually play into me that punishes this? Doran is not going to go for some crazy counter, but he's a very stable guy. I just expect to see Gragas and just try to actually answer that and mitigate that lane. Gragas is difficult to punish. You know, he has so much sustain with his passive, so much mana built up. Delight looking towards an engage pick, which really is his specialty. This guy does shine on the Leonas, on the Rakans. That is his bread and butter.
Leona's also really good into Draven because you know where he's going to be. The only issue is he can knock you back from your Zenith blade as you go forward, but you can solar flare where that axe is going to land and you know you're going to lock him down. Gen.G currently hovering a carry top. Fiora for Doran wouldn't be his regular wheelhouse, but would be very exciting.
I would be surprised if it's going to get locked in.
Even that good into Darius?
In the late game. It's actually a really tough matchup early on, but he's going to actually just slam this down. That is a lot of confidence here for Doran. And I'm so curious to see where Mickey is going to go. Is he going to try to go, you know, some sort of an answer to actually really deal with this Leona?
I was thinking Tom Kench initially, but then you realize that there's very little engage on the side of G2.
And I feel like you have to play for lane dominance, right? So you have to be able to play something that can go aggressive. I actually like the Braum here quite a bit. You know, Braum can really answer these Leona engages. If Leona goes forward, you can actually just very easily stack up the passive, focus down this Leona, you know, try to use that to get a little bit aggressive here. Also can be difficult to actually dive through that Braum, through the Lissandra, which is going to be the task that Peanut, Chovy, Doran are all faced with.
I think that when we look at Gen.G's draft, it's not that different to what we've been seeing succeed in the meta, right? The fact that Chovy and Peanut have gotten their hands on Ahri should just be a terrifying prospect for EU fans because of how powerful this duo is. Peyz back on his comfort Aphelios. The big surprise is seeing Doran on this Fiora, while in the early laning phase, it might be a struggle. For Broken Blade, this is a huge test. Domestically, the question mark from fans has always been, how can you compete with Korean top laners? Game 1, best of 5, here's Darius into a Korean Fiora top.
Well, I think he is
Excited, gentlemen. We're kicking off the tournament.
Let's go!
Best of 5 between the LCK's first seed and LEC second. The G2 versus Gen.G rematch from a few years ago. Very different teams now. We'll be making our way onto the Rift with two very defined styles. Can G2 consume Gen.G in the early game, or can Gen.G weather the storm and come out ahead in the fights later?
Yeah, and there's so much pressure in a game like this. You know, G2, I do think, have the advantage of having warmed up a bit. They've played on this stage, they played through play-ins, they look great for the most part in it. Because these first 10-15 minutes of the game, I think, are likely to decide the course of the entire game. If you do not create a significant lead, it is going to be so much easier for Gen.G to really isolate Hansama in these fights, to lock him down with Divide, to burst him out. He has to play from ahead, and so does Darius, so does Nidalee, to really be able to match up what their opponents have.
And I know that throughout this game, we're going to be keeping our eyes on that AD carry matchup, Peyz versus Hansama. I didn't talk about the Draven because we're so not used to seeing Hansama get this champion. It was a big meme domestically about how teams needed to ban this one away. Already, G2 looking to set up something sneaky. The delayed invade here will be spotted out by a ward from Gen.G. Going to be sweeped out by Miky.
Braum is so strong on these invades, you really cannot contest here, you know, with that passive plus the Draven. So they're going to go in, and they're going to try to create split map, is my assumption here with G2, which would mean Darius is actually going to be a little bit in isolation. You can see he's actually zoned off the wave already. If you look up towards the mini-map, Darius is going to be standing back, trying to zone him off XP as Doran.
And this is what G2 do on the red side. Like 60% of their kills and assists before 40 minutes are in the bot lane when they're playing red side. They love looking for slow shoves under the tower and then getting both caps going down towards the bottom side. Doran's going to be ticking away to this passive. The hemorrhage, the flash away from Doran. And Broken Blade may be on the weak side, but he's not playing a weak early game matchup.
So I believe Broken Blade, his W auto reset actually got cancelled by the flash from Doran. Ends up being a flash for flash, but a huge health advantage game for Broken Blade. The problem for him is he's now lost both his flash and ghost as Chovy. Very good trade against Caps, but the map has now been split.
Level 1, they're going to dive.
The light has cleanse. Peyz has cleanse, in fact, uses the early light, looking for the damage. Miky tanking up the tower, he'll fall. 1-for-1 so far as Hansama now opens up onto Delight, but you can't really tank a Leona underneath the tower. No turret shots going onto Hansama, means that he can just walk away.
Well, that's it. He can actually get flashed on here potentially. This is getting pretty risky because he has no cleanse.
The
he's going down.
Caps flashes, Chovy flashes, and take a pew, Caps, because church is in session.
Chovy, the first non-Korean mid laner he's played against in a best of 5 internationally here. He's going up against Caps, the Western GOAT, and showing him what's what. Caps even going for this more lane-focused setup with the Ahri. It's not a Spellbook Lissandra. It's not Aftershock Lissandra. He's trying to play for that lane, but Chovy getting that solo kill is huge.
So much happening on the map. Broken Blade going all in the top side, committing all of his summoner spells. In the bot lane, a dive from G2. Nice response there from Doran as he gets a favorable trade against Broken Blade. You expect him to go back to base now.
Yeah.
The fact that Peyz burnt all of his summoner spells, lost his life, lost the big wave, but in terms of the gold difference between the two bot lane is really not that different.
Yeah, and this is the problem, is that, you know, it's actually Peyz up a couple CS. You know, the kill did not go to the Draven here. You know, they forced this dive so early. This is level 2 Nidalee going for the dive here. Miky doing a great job starting it off, tanking it up. You know, he is going to give his life, but it's well worth it for that kill.
And Hans does end up taking a bit of damage here against the light as he ends up taking the power shot, but very uncharacteristic play here from Caps. Chovy just has the level advantage, holds the E, commits the flash for flash, but we make our eyes back towards the bot lane.
He's gonna get caught up with the concussive blows, and Hansama will get this one! On the board, the Draven now, and G2 starting to snowball through this bot lane.
Massive kill there for G2. You gotta get those cash-ins. Peanut here around mid lane, though. They know there's no flash on Caps. They know he could be potentially vulnerable. And they also know that Nidalee could be looking towards mid. So Peanut is gonna be hovering around this mid lane, trying to cover Chovy, who has this early advantage, and is gonna be trying to look to press it.
So that AD carry difference was was non-existent before, but now there's a 700 gold lead in favor of Hansama. This bot lane is known domestically as being hyper-aggressive, and you saw exactly why this Draven earns so much respect in Europe.
And as we see Chovy starting to move around the map, he's going to
Oh, look at the stacked wave.
Big stack wave, as you say. Caps no TP, had to burn that after he died in the mid lane.
And I think Broken Blade's going to have to leave, right? And even just making him leave is such a big victory because there's so many minions here, but they're going to look for this dive, and he hasn't left.
No one taking the tower as of yet. Doran's going to do it. The pulse coming out, and Broken Blade's locked up. 100 health is not enough. Doran takes the kill, and Gen.G will get plates to boot.
Really well played by Doran. They're waiting out that pull. You know, he's just trying to get the parry on it. Broken Blade waits it out, but doesn't have the damage to actually knock him down, and that is a massive loss with no TP. That is 10, 12 minions there that he's going to lose, plus the death.
Excuse me, the early few lanes, the early few levels from Broken Blade were good. He did what he needed to. Got that wave underneath the tower so he could get a good base off, but Gen.G responded in kind by attacking that stacked wave, knowing that they have prio in mid lane after Chovy secured himself the solo kill. Means that they're able to punish Broken Blade massively in the top lane.
And the worst part about this is BB is going to hit 5, but Doran's close to 6. He's almost an entire level behind. So, you know, the kill goes to your opponent, you lose the full wave, you're down a full level. So it is going to be Doran in a really strong place here, because this is one of those matchups that Darius can win for the first couple items, but if you fall behind, it's not like you can pray for late game. You're never going to start winning if you fall behind this Fiora in the side lane. You're going to have to look towards scrappy fights around the Herald, around the Dragon, trying to get those resets. As the focus will change.
You can see right now Yike just hovering around the top side of the map, making sure the Broken Blade is safe on this bounce back wave so that he can make sure he gets that underneath the tower. But the problem for Gen.G right now is that Peyz and Delight, while that wave is coming closer to them, it's a very dangerous position for them to be in. So they have to wait for this wave. And this could be a window where G2 set up for a dive, but with Peanut already hovering around that space in the map, they are prepared, even though right now it doesn't look like G2 is threatening any dive.
Yeah, Caps for a little bit was cheating down towards that bot lane, and that's where we saw Peyz and Delight really backing off. But as soon as he showed on mid, pings are on him there from Gen.G, and Delight and Peyz are going to feel a lot more comfortable to step up here, farm out this wave.
For the moment, Hansama and MikyX just being able to keep that bot lane pressure up. Peyz does have the cleanse back up, and his flash will be returning shortly. Only a 400 gold difference between the two. Obviously, Doran getting that kill and the tower place in the top lane has evened that out a little bit. Like Yike looking for something here, but the control board keeps him at bay. Miky and Hansama will start up the Dragon. Peyz on purple-blue, not the best guns because he's got a lot of ammo in that purple gun, so wouldn't be able to switch off it quickly. And might try to contest, but I think G2...
Chovy has push, so they can actually bring it down if they want. You know, Chovy has his ultimate available here.
I don't know, Delight and Peyz are backing. This is more of a steal than anything else, I think. And in the end, Gen.G will retreat from the situation, and G2 will get their first Dragon of the game.
So when we take stock overall, top side of the map going in favor right now for Gen.G. You can see a massive CS discrepancy really starting to build in that top lane 1v1. That dive doing so much work for Doran in the matchup. And the fact that Chovy finds himself that solo kill, giving him that gold advantage in mid. It's not too dramatic, the difference in mid, given that Caps was able to close that CS gap thanks to the roam that Chovy did instigate. But the bot side of the map is really where G2 is dominating. But across the board, gold's still very even, a very neutral game state. And again, Gen.G, from their perspective, they want to weather that storm. They know in the late game they're going to have a number of options, and it's this dive that could be very impactful as we move into the mid-game.
Well, they actually had vision of the jungle pet, even though they didn't see Yike. You can see that jungle pet, which did give it away.
Sometimes that is a spec thing, so sometimes you can see the pet because we have perfect vision as opposed to the players, so it's possible they would just...
It is one of those weird things, though, in this season, because even, you know, sometimes you'll see an invade coming in, and you can see the jungle pet leaving, you know the jungler is still there in the area. Either way, Delight, you know, positioning well, blocking the spears there for Peyz. And Peyz doing pretty well, you know, is keeping up in farm, did go for a call start, so a bit of a greedier start, you have to say, when you are going up against this Draven.
I mean, he's in a fine position. It's 400 gold down. Yeah, Hansama is getting some stacks up, looking to see if this Rift Herald is being taken, and it is, but not going to be able to steal it away. So for the moment, Gen.G have weathered the early storm that G2 have put down. And as you say, Vedi, when we get towards the mid-late game team fights, that's where Gen.G are really going to shine.
Absolutely, and I do think it's tough to lose this early Herald here when you're going for Darius Nidalee as your top side. You know, giving that over because of the advantage that they were able to create. You know, G2 was looking for a lane swap up towards top, and we'll see if they're going to try to go for anything aggressive here, looking potentially to find Peanut in his own jungle, push Doran back.
Doran will just retreat from the safety of the tower. Frozen Tomb's going to land, though, as Peanut has been locked up, and Yike will take him out. G2 continue to push forward as Doran retreats, And for the moment, G2 able to get a kill and a plate out of it.
Yeah, that's a great kill on the top side here, and they're going to be able to zone Doran away from all these minions that are coming in. So he's going to lose that full wave. They get the kill on Peanut, who was being a bit greedy on that top side. You know, he knew that G2 were up there in the area. Now looking to try to threaten this dive.
But look where Delight is. Delight's already here to react
Yeah.
and has the 6. So as soon as G2 see him, they have to retreat from it. They can't take that play anymore.
Look at this full move up towards top side, though. You can see, you know, Peyz is even moving out towards top, so they're going to actually match the swap here. They're not going to continue keeping Peyz on that bottom side, trying to take plates away.
You can see that the game plan from G2 is to get Broken Blade out of what was a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
They didn't want to run the risk of him getting dived or isolated, so by swapping Hansama and MikyX towards the top side, there was a world where they could actually contest the Herald. Of course, Gen.G, very proactive, recognizing that window, able to secure that objective in advance, but the fact that they were able to find that dive, Peanut just a little overextended in his side of the jungle, perhaps didn't expect Yike and Caps to be invading so aggressively, and he ends up losing his life. But it's still a very close game. They look for Mickey.
Saw Peanut with the Scryer's Boom. Yike stopped his recall because of it. Cease and desist under the tower. Solar Flare coming out as well, but Mickey is very tanky on this Braum. Glacial Fissure has been popped up as Delight. Not underneath the turret shots. Should be able to back away. Ignite ticks on him, but he does retreat. The Whirling Dead. He hasn't got the stacks to get through that Eclipse. Oh! The spear finds its mark.
G2 finding another pick after Gen.G tried to force the dive. They knew that they had the numbers advantage initially, but they couldn't quite make the dive work. Mickey was able to buy enough time, and then a great spear comes out from Yike. 3-0-0 now on the Nidalee. We haven't really talked much about Yike, but this game he's getting big farm advantages, and he is becoming a very strong power point for G2.
He absolutely is. He has the Sork boots. He's closing in on his Mythic. That is going to be a massive spike for him, and he's going to have to be, you know, a real power player here for the team because he got all those early kills. But I've got to say, it was kind of a bizarre overforce from Gen.G. You're going on to Mickey. He already had the wall up before the stun even landed from the Leona. He pre-E'd the stun, and you're trying to hard force in what looked like a turret dive on him. It was kind of a strange choice, and they do, rightfully so, get punished. So G2, you know, trying to maintain some semblance of control here. Would love to see them continue stacking the dragons up. They have that first dragon. They have Hansama Draven in this position of power. I do feel like they need to have something to stack towards as a win condition to offset the scaling disadvantage.
Yeah, I was going to say, something that G2 could consider is actually trading top plates. It seems like a play committed in the bot side.
Apprehend's already been used, so Doran can just walk away. He gets the gold from the plates there, buddy.
Did Doran actually get any gold from the plate?
Yeah, he just attacked it, so
cool.
he got some gold, yeah.
Caps now looking for a roam up top. Delight though with a good ward.
Puts the Zenith plate down. Chovy's on his way across as well. Caps has Glacial Path and will use it just to sneak his way back across the wall. Chovy's on his way up here, but spotted on vision the entire way. Another plate over to Hansama, and you can really see where these teams are investing their time. G2, can we get Hansama fed enough to carry this game? And on Gen.G, it's how much gold can we put into Doran, who's now finished his Divine Sundra.
It's like Chovy with another great charm onto Caps. We'll chunk him out, but when we kind of, again, look at the gold differences, we can see Yike and Hansama very sizable advantages on their side of the map, whereas Chovy and Doran have been able to build healthy advantages of their own. It's a small lead for G2 for the time being, but Gen.G definitely still in a very comfortable position as we enter the mid-game.
And G2 is really praying for something other than Chemtech Soul. They're praying for something that can be really strong. Mountain Soul would probably be the best that they can get in this situation.
You've blessed us, Azael.
Yeah.
Mountain Soul.
So that is actually really big, being able to get that Mountain Soul potentially, especially against a comp like this. Vi Ahri are really going to struggle to deal with that, so that is very big for G2. They can stack towards that win condition, and the Proto Belt's now done here for Yike, so you want to see him continue to run this game. It's going to be a really aggressive look here from Han, so it is going to be the Gale Force Draven, and he has 278 stacks, so it may feel a little bit preemptive, but I honestly feel like the first major team fight could decide this entire game. If they can actually remove those stacks, you lose 75% of them on death, versus getting that cash in could really snowball into a quick second item.
Yeah, so far this game, Gen.G haven't even considered contesting Dragon.
Yep.
There was a bit of a peak from Peanut around the first one, but aside from that, they've just conceded that objective. They tried to cross-map. We saw the dive into top lane. We saw them secure an early Herald. And given that G2 have committed their bot lane to the top side of the map, I wouldn't be surprised to see them concede the next Herald as well. But they have a great awareness of the fact that they don't need to fight the Draven right now. They can wait for a team fight later on, wait for the Aphelios to get items, because you can already see the Gale Force now completed for Peyz as well. So while there is that discrepancy, Gen.G happy to just sit back and scale up, knowing that they have options in the later game.
I just think the Gale Force is so interesting, right? Because, you know, generally when you're looking at Gale Force, it can be this aggressive option, but it also can be defensive. You can actually dodge the skill shots. The problem is you're against Vi, right? Yep. And you're probably going to get ulted in every single fight, so we'll see how well he can actually utilize that to try to avoid some of the dive. Of course, he does have Cleanse, But if you get Vi-ulted into Charm, even if you're cleansing that, the amount of damage that's going to be coming through is going to be enormous. So potentially not having something like a shield bow to try to mitigate that could be punishing. But it is, high risk, high reward, because if you get ahead, you can get that cash in potentially with an execute from that Gale Force. That could be massive.
Yeah, it does feel like perhaps the next dragon is going to be the defining moment,
think
right?
so.
The mountain, the sole point for G2. Gen.G will want to contest it. Doran is so strong now as well in the side lane. If he can start actually pressuring Broken Blade and Broken Blade stands up to him rather than just retreating underneath the tower, I think Gen.G have a lot of options coming into this mid game.
I mean, Fiora becomes a completely different champion once Thunder is completed. That's where your damage really ramps up. Like, you have a strong level 1, just queuing, proccing vitals, grasping, but then you really do kind of have this lull until you can create that mythic. And Broken Blade obviously is set very far behind because of the dive and because of the early tier 2 boots, but we're going to get scrappier around this Herald.
Miky misses the Winter's Bite and the Glacial Fissure. Everfrost coming out, Summer dodging the Charmers, Miky tanks it for him. Yike can jump out of the back of the pit. Hunt's looking for a little bit more,
TP
but now
coming
with the
in.
TP behind them, Miky locked up, he's going to be sacrificed. The Solar Flare finds one as well, and Doran's on the chase. The Grand Challenge has been issued, and Summer was chucked into the Lion's Den. Doran takes another, and on the top side, Caps will fall as well.
Fantastic awareness from Gen.G. They knew that Broken Blade being locked bot with no teleport, they could guarantee a numbers advantage. What looked like a flank from Caps ended up being a flank for Doran as they force G2 to split apart. They tear them apart one by one, and now they'll walk away with the Herald.
Yeah, and it's just a great TP ward there from Doran. Was ahead, makes good on it. Hans wanted to collapse on the TP and try to kill it off, but they just didn't have enough people there to make it happen. And he ends up just giving over all of those stacks, lost hundreds of stacks in that death. That is so painful. Plus the flash, plus the Gale Force activation. And it kind of comes down to this early fight here. Just sidestep on the Q from Peanut, then sidestep on the ulti as well. Miky cannot connect. And yes, the charm gets blocked, but both sides of the Q actually hit Hans. So he's at 50%. And when they peel back onto this TP ward, it's not as though G2 have 4 or 5 people waiting. It's just Caps who gets stunned. And then there's no one there to lock him down. So Hans is isolated completely, just taken down.
Great patient play there from Gen.G. They're waiting for G2 to overcommit. Like, the E was used from the Lissandra. You could see that their game plan was to try and lock down Chovy, and he just kind of elegantly danced around, waited. He didn't even have to use any summoner spells. And then the moment the G2 overstepped a tad too much, the TP flank comes in, and Gen.G collapsed. Great team fight from them, and now they've ballooned the gold lead in their favor.
I've got to give so much credit to Delight for that ulti. That was actually so well timed. Getting that Leona stun, but he is caught out now.
Doesn't have flash, misses the Zenith Blade. Solar Flare goes wide as well, only gets the slow. Yike looking for a bit more damage. The Whirling Death not enough. Broken Blade down towards the bottom side is fighting against Chovy, hit with the charm. Yike keeps Peyz, Delight, and Peanut at bay. Chovy can flank, but probably doesn't want to because the rest of his team has retreated to the mid lane.
And then it's a couple ultimates now spent by Gen.G, so if G2 can actually reset, get out here for this dragon really quickly, they could have the advantage because that was the ultimate off Delight, that's the ultimate off Chovy. They're not going to have those available. But that previous Solar Flare, on Caps right as the TP arrives, prevents there being any peeling on Doran, and the timing on that was just really, really nice.
I want to have a word with Chronicle after this game, because this is not the Doran I was promised. I knew he was good at Gragas, but Fiora, his 50% win rate on his only played it twice. Having an absolute storm over performance here. Broken Blade did manage to win out the level 1, level 2, but couldn't really do much more after that as Summer's caught in the mid, and Doran has roamed around once again. Caught up with the Glacial Fissure, Summer starts to open up. Double TPs have been invested as Caps looks perhaps for a Frozen Tomb. Doesn't follow the path. Can't go any further forward. Moonlight Vigil hits, only takes a little bit of damage. Summer tickled by it, but already down to half HP with the Rift Herald charging in. Broken Blade apprehends Delight, but that's not really the target you want. The Eclipse going to keep him alive for the moment. The tower falls, Peanut goes in, and Summer's locked down, and they just don't have the peel to keep their AD carry alive. Peanut takes a double, Peyz takes one on top, and now the chase down continues as Yike is forced underneath this tower.
It's a slaughter. Gen.G get the mid tower, get 3 kills as well. The dragon is going to be theirs whenever they want to take it. Peanut going back for it, as the rest of his team is going to take the tier 2 mid as well. And all of a sudden, the gold lead now enormous for Gen.G with this better scaling comp. It's not even 19 minutes. They're a good 6,000 gold ahead. They have stopped the dragon stacking. They've taken all the stacks off Hansama, and G2 are very quickly running out of options.
Gen.G have just controlled the Draven so well. And we saw once again how patiently they play these fights. They get G2 to use so many cooldowns, and then the moment that window opens up, what happens? Peanut immediately throws down the ultimate. You have the Delight ultimate to follow up. You have Chovy there to follow up. Like, the execution onto the back line is just so clean and easy for Gen.G to execute.
Well, it was just interesting, you know, Gen.G were just spending ultimates very aggressively. You know, they were actually down 4 ultimates at one point in this fight, but they had such big HP advantages because they weren't worrying about this 100-0 fight. As soon as they see an opportunity, they're just spending it. There's the Fiora ultimate chunking him down. There's the ultimate from Peyz chunking Hans even further. And now they only have 1 ultimate remaining, but it's peanuts. And as soon as Hans is in range, he sees this window of opportunity. The Herald has taken down the tower. Q forward, ulti right in on top. There's the ulti from Delight following it right up, and he just gets burst down.
There's just so many tools to get on the back line, right? And you look at the side of G2, it's like, who's engaging for you? Well, Lissandra, kind of. Everyone else just needs to be in close range to really do too much. And you can just see how well Gen.G are playing these fights. Dragon taken by them, as you say, Azael, and now a 6,000 gold lead for the LCK first seed.
I mean, Yike is still strong, but he's actually down nearly 1,000 gold now on Peanut. And that is very problematic. You know, they don't have any guaranteed setup for this Nidalee, so the spears are difficult to land in the fight. You know, you can try to apprehend into it, but that can also sometimes be the anti-synergy where you're pulling them out of the spear. You have Lissandra set up, but that is kind of pretty expensive to spend, and it also puts Caps at a lot of risk if he's stepping forward for a W just to set up a spear.
Domestically, Darius is something very well known to the LEC, especially when we have so many avid Darius players. But I think that teams in Europe have struggled to always punish the lack of TP. And I think that this is a great representation from Gen.G of how a split pusher can be so devastating against when you don't have that teleport available. The fact that Doran never needs to leave a side lane, which means that it's so much harder for Broken Blade to sacrifice waves to group up with his team because of the amount of damage that Doran can do. And now G2 are finally trying to attack that side lane.
Riposte was used, flash away from the wall, Frozen Tomb popped down as well, but the grand challenge on Caps and Broken Blades on the wrong side of the wall to help out here. Everfrost does get a double root. The rest of G2 trying to react. Peanut can just dash away with Vault Breaker. Meanwhile, you can see Chovy in the top lane, doing Chovy things, pushing waves, catching minions, taking towers.
But again, Gen.G are just playing the map better, right? Like, what options do G2 really have? They know they can send Chovy off to a side lane. They know they can send Doran off. And they're just taking advantage of the fact that Caps can't be in 2 places at once, and they always know that they can create this numbers advantage. And this is how they've made it very difficult for G2 to really snowball any kind of early leads that they have.
I mean, it's going to be even more difficult when, obviously you don't have the TP. You talk about that as
Yike down, the Solarflame has to flash it. But it's looking for a bit of pick damage, but couldn't get it.
They have no winning matchups, right? Like, there's no lane assignment that you're actually going to really win out on here for G2 anymore. Plus, there's the TP disadvantage. It is going to be a fully stacked ult there.
No mana right now. Broken Blade with the Ghost has already invested the flash. Doran won't have enough to dodge away. Can escape for the moment. Meanwhile, on the top side of the map, you can actually see Peanut on a rampage. Doran caught up. The shutdown will go down to Broken Blade, but Mickey was caught by Gen.G. as Broken Blade was looking for the chase down block.
Lazy Recall is punished, but again, on the other side of the map, they get a kill. They know there's no TP on Darius. He would have to base first, so they're just straight onto the Baron here. Stacking up those Chukrams is Peyz, and this Baron is going to go down in a hurry. It looks like it won't even be contested.
Overall, a very impressive game from Gen.G. The fact that Peyz and Delight were attacked so often in the early game, they were able to weather that storm, and they've been able to bounce back. And huge credit to Chovy as well, solo killing Caps, translating that pressure from mid into a successful dive top, and being able to work so well with Peanut in finding so many great picks. Gen.G just controlling the top side of the jungle, knowing that they have such a massive lead. Mickey trying to get some vision back, but he ends up getting caught out.
Yeah, I mean, if the Braum can't even be safe, from a pick like this, things are getting grim. But Gen.G definitely playing them out very, very well. And you talked about being able to punish these double combats on the top laners. If you ever get dove on a stacked wave and you don't have TP, it is so rough. Like, you are generally out of the game in that 1v1 just from that. And Gen.G was able to put Doran in this position to get him that advantage. They know he would outscale. They get him the lead early, and now he's making good on that. He was able to translate that into the TP flank, take down Hans, which was kind of the win condition on the other side of the map. So Gen.G has really done a good job of translating their points of power, moving them around the map. Chovy gets a solo kill. He goes top, puts Doran ahead. Doran finds a TP flank. He takes out Hans Sama. And that is really the hallmark of an excellent team.
And I think G2, on the other hand, have struggled to use their points of power. Yike has had 3 kills for the last 10 minutes or so and hasn't been able to then actually wrest any control away from Gen.G. As we see Broken Blade and Doran fighting up towards the top side. He dodges the Noxian Guillotine with the riposte. The rest of G2 trying to collapse while Gen.G are pushing in 4 members strong down towards the bottom lane. The path comes out, but Doran can just dash away and retreat from G2, and now the inhibitor towers will be open up. Flash away from Mickey as he's caught in the cease and desist. The solar player finds his mark as well, and Gen.G find another kill, while Doran just toys with G2 in the top lane. The inhibitor tower will be raised to the ground, the inhibitor short to follow.
Great stuff overall from Gen.G. There's just nothing standing in their way. Peanut once again forces Hansama back. The ultimate comes through from Caps, but the inhibitor drops and the fight begins.
The re-engage from Gen.G is sublime, but Delight already taken out. The charm hits onto Caps and he will fall as well. Now in a 4v3, Gen.G continue to push in. The spear does connect on Chovy. He's got TP. He was looking to bolster up his mana bar once again, but Gen.G will escort their mid laner out of the G2 base. Yike still looking for the chase. No cleanse on Peyz, but really no way to gap close for G2.
Yeah, but G2 just have to keep chasing, right? You have to stop them from basing. You need to try to get this dragon. We'll see if they can make it happen.
Doran locked up. Glacier Fisher goes wide. Doran looking for the damage on Mickey. He dashes away once again. The spear dodge, but Doran is low. One more axe would be enough. The TP now coming in from Chovy. He's looking for the flank with the Cosmic Drivers. Peanut is locked up. Peyz down towards the bottom side. Peanut shut out of the fight. Peyz will dash away, but Chovy on the back line finds one already. He's looking for more as he dives onto Mickey. That's another. The counter TP, but Peyz takes another. And Chovy and Peyz just dance around on the edge of the abyss. They play with G2. Caps pops the stopwatch. Peyz dashes out of vision. And the frozen tomb will be your icy grave, Caps, as Gen.G clean up the fight.
It's a quadra kill. They're delayed one for Chovy as Gen.G clean it up. G2 has no choice but to chase in that situation, though. They needed to get this dragon to have any semblance of hope, so they go for the chase, but Chovy able to TP back in, able to punish, as G2 had no resources left after they went all in on that.
You see Hansama getting a couple kills, and that semblance of hope begins to rise for Europe, but Chovy very quick to put them back in their place. You can see a numbers advantage starts off the fight for G2. They think that Doran has overstayed his welcome. Peyz on low health bars is an easy kill. Han's hesitant to commit the flash, but the second that he does, Peanut sees a window, messes up the Q flash there a little bit, ends up losing his life, but then Chovy has the ultimate full on life, and just look at how he does so much damage. Q connects onto all four members of G2. Dances back and forth, gets the reset on the ultimate. Peyz with the empowered minions as well, assisting him in the skirmish, but the damage isn't quite enough from Caps, as Chovy secures another kill. Mickey now losing his life.
Well, he hasn't done it yet, Vedi, but it's very shortly to follow as he does go down once again. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, Chovy diving forward, pops the Zonius to keep himself alive for the moment. Hansama retreating underneath the inhibitor tower, and in the end, it's already a double for Peanut. He ceases and desists any hope that G2 had of winning this game. The Nexus in their eyes, Gen.G will push in for 1-0.
Beautiful game from Gen.G, and in sub 30 minutes, their debut at MSI is one of dominance. The LCK first seed is here to play.
A sublime performance from Gen.G. G2 threw a lot of them in the early game, but Gen.G held strong, and they will go 1-0 up in this best of 5.
6-0 and 15 from Chovy. 20 stacks on the Magi as well. Church well and truly in
21
session.
of 20.